It was just too precious. And I was like, they're not going to want to sit here for 45 minutes and listen to anybody be precious. And then afterwards, she was kind of like, oh.
I just disrupted the flow. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's good.
But go
Let's
ahead.
have a conversation.
That's what
a little bit about interviewing Katie. I think it's okay.
Hollywood legend Brooke Shields has spoken out about her horrendous encounter on stage with Meghan Markle at the South by Southwest Festival, and it's clear that the two divas didn't get on at all.
Meghan complaining about people being allowed to say things that she doesn't like.
What if it was your friend or your mom or your daughter? You wouldn't do it. And I think that is the piece that is so lost right now in what's happening in the digital space and in certain sectors of the media. We have forgotten about our humanity.
Angela Levin, our royal mastermind, here with this. We're going to show you what Brooke Shields had to say in just one moment. But Angela, this is fascinating, isn't it? Because Brooke Shields, a total legend, and she makes it so clear that she just couldn't put up with Meghan's nonsense.
You and your freaking husband wrote a book to tear people down and did nothing but a campaign to destroy their reputation, and then they do it to any one of their enemies as well.
Now, Angela, I'm sure a lot of A-listers have felt this in the past, but don't you find it fascinating that Brooke Shields is going on the record, is prepared to now say this? It feels like a bit of a tipping point.
Ridiculous.
And that has got to change, because I understand there's a bottom line, and I understand that a lot of money is being made there. But even if it's making dollars, it doesn't make sense.
Whoa. Super annoying, super annoying.
This is one of the ways where we're different. When I was 11, I was playing a prostitute.
Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely. Because she could, that happened a year ago. She could have done it then, but obviously she's sort of burst open now to say what she wanted to say for the whole year. And actually to be honest about it and tell her, will you shut up? You're talking a load of rubbish.
So,
Okay, Brooke.
I wished I'd known you.
where we're going here.
When I was 11.
A little different.
I would have been writing very different letters, but equally important, I hope.
And I think that it's good of her. You know, she didn't want people sitting there listening to her for 45 minutes, she said. You know, too boring for words. And, you know, she just said how awful it is that she's talking about when she was 11.
Never good for a career. So I pass. But then this a very good friend of mine came to me with this idea.
Something unexpected happened on stage at SXSW, and it wasn't part of the script. Meghan Markle was in full storytelling mode, recounting her now famous dish soap at age 11 moment. You know the one. How she supposedly saw a commercial suggesting only women wash dishes, got offended, wrote a letter, and sparked a corporate rethink. It's become a cornerstone of her public persona. Young Meghan, bold and brilliant, taking on gender bias before she even hit middle school. Only this time, the audience wasn't quite buying it. Sitting beside her was Hollywood legend Brooke Shields, who's been navigating fame since before Meghan knew how to spell feminism.
When she talked about women, not all women should wash up. Remember that? She claimed that she sent a letter off. But in fact, the truth was that it was a class thing that they did, not just her, and that her father suggested it.
And somewhere between the third and fourth mention of when I was 11, Brooke had had enough. With impeccable timing, Brooke cut in, light tone, big smile, and dropped a line that instantly flipped the energy of the room. She said, "When I was 11, let's just say I was being directed in roles that were a bit less wholesome." The crowd cracked up. Meghan froze. The tone went from solemn to stunned in a matter of seconds. It wasn't just a joke, it was a shift. A small, satirical jab that gently, yet firmly, popped the bubble of Meghan's perfectly polished speech. And from that point on, the stage no longer belonged to her alone. This moment wasn't about malice. It was about contrast. Real-world experience versus perfectly packaged storytelling. And for the first time in a long time, someone on stage pushed back, and the audience chose real over rehearsed. And backstage, let's just say Meghan didn't exactly laugh it off. But that's only scratching the surface. because what followed next wasn't just awkward, it became a full-blown media moment.
Totally,
And it
exactly.
was about-
So that whole story is questionable anyway. But I think, Angela, what is really, really interesting is that there was also an encounter off stage.
The event was supposed to be uplifting, empowering, and carefully controlled, just the way Meghan likes it. It was March 2024, and the setting couldn't have been more high profile. South by Southwest's International Women's Day panel in Austin, Texas. The crowd, massive. The stakes, even bigger. On stage sat a lineup designed to impress: Meghan Markle, Brooke Shields, a respected female physician, and none other than veteran journalist Katie Couric moderating the discussion. For an audience expecting a celebration of womanhood, empowerment, and life stories from the stars, it seemed like a perfect match. But from the moment Meghan grabbed the mic, the vibe shifted. Instead of speaking off the cuff or engaging with her fellow panelists, Meghan dove into familiar territory, the infamous dish soap story. The same one she's told in documentaries, interviews, and even school visits. How, at age 11, she saw an ad that implied only women washed dishes, got upset, wrote letters, and supposedly helped get the commercial changed. It's a tidy, media-friendly tale, one that fits her public image like a glove: young, woke, articulate, and heroic.
Brooke Shields, in this interview with India Hicks on her Substack, An Unexpected Journey, makes it clear that Ms. Markle, the fake Duchess, she wasn't happy with being challenged.
But there's one problem with overly polished stories told too many times. They stop feeling real. Brooke Shields, who's lived a wildly different version of childhood in the spotlight, clearly picked up on the shift. She later admitted on a podcast that the moment was getting too precious. In other words, too scripted, too self-congratulatory, too much. And when an audience of thousands starts mentally checking out during a high-profile keynote, you can feel it. Brooke definitely did. The irony? This was supposed to be a moment of unity, of shared experience between powerful women. Instead, it became something else entirely, a lesson in how quickly the room can turn when it senses one voice is sucking the oxygen out of the space. And Brooke? She wasn't about to stay silent much longer. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't on the agenda. But it hit like a thunderclap. As Meghan continued her familiar monologue, mentioning when I was 11 for what felt like the fourth time, the tension in the room was becoming hard to ignore. The message was clear, but the delivery was dense. And in a space meant for dialogue, it had turned into a solo performance. Brooke Shields, sensing that the audience was silently pleading for a breath of fresh air, took it upon herself to deliver one. She leaned in.
God, did I tell you?
No.
Oh God, I don't know if you'll have to cut this out, but you might. I don't know. You'll decide later, okay?
This is the best bit of all.
This is the best bit of all. So, I don't know if I'm going to get hated, but I get a call from Katie Couric, and she's doing South by Southwest.
Gently raised her hand, and with the kind of comedic precision that only comes from surviving decades in Hollywood, said, "Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I've just got to jump in for a second. When I was 11, let's just say I wasn't writing letters. I was working on a very different kind of script." The crowd erupted. Laughter, relief, and maybe even a little bit of disbelief rippled through the auditorium. In just one sentence, Brooke did what no one else had managed to do. She lightly popped the bubble around Meghan's perfectly polished persona. And she did it without malice, without raising her voice, and without even naming names. It wasn't an insult, it was contrast. Her point wasn't to belittle Meghan's story, but to remind everyone that not all girlhoods are Pinterest-perfect tales of empowerment. Some are complicated, some are messy, and some don't come with the privilege of writing advocacy letters between private school lunches and drama club rehearsals. It was humor, but laced with perspective. And the room, it didn't just laugh, it shifted. Because once someone breaks the spell, it's hard to pretend it never happened. And if you think Meghan simply shrugged it off and moved on, think again. The real drama hadn't even started yet. Backstage, the energy was very different from the chuckles echoing through the auditorium. According to multiple accounts, Meghan wasn't exactly laughing along with the audience. While Brooke Shields brushed off the moment as lighthearted and even worried aloud that she might have come off as rude, Meghan's reaction, at least behind the scenes, was reportedly ice cold.
Big, big, big. They're closing the middle arena. we're closing it out. We're the only one. It's thousands of people. It's Kitty Couric, Meghan Markle, and a doctor. And Kitty asks me to be a part of it.
There was no, "That was funny," no, "Thanks for keeping it lively," just a tight-lipped acknowledgement and a noticeable chill in the air. And honestly, for those who followed Meghan's history, that tracks. Royal biographer Angela Levin weighed in, calling Brooke's quip a rare moment of celebrity honesty, the kind Meghan's not used to being on the receiving end of. Levin even suggested this moment might be a tipping point, not just in public perception, but among fellow celebrities who've grown tired of Meghan's always-on image management. It's not the first time Meghan has been accused of holding a grudge. From distancing herself from her father and former friends, to the ongoing royal rift with King Charles and Prince William, critics have often claimed that she doesn't take well to criticism, even when it's dressed in humor. And what made this moment especially sharp? It wasn't scripted. It wasn't part of a PR campaign. It wasn't a podcast episode where Meghan had full editorial control. It was real, public, and witnessed by thousands in real time. For once, someone pushed back, and not a tabloid, not an anonymous insider, but another A-lister, one with just as much public capital, if not more.
So I was like, oh, okay, all right. You know what? Just do it. Just go talk about what you need to. We get there, Katie asks the first question to Meghan and talks about how, at a young age, she was already advocating for women, etc. So she starts talking and telling a story about how when she was 11.
Brooke didn't come swinging. She came smiling, and somehow that made it 10 times more effective. What started as a simple panel became a defining moment. But while the panel may have ended, the ripple effect was just getting started. Because what hit the headlines next didn't just involve Meghan. It roped in Harry, Netflix, and a pineapple too. The moment Brooke dropped that line, the internet lit up. Clips from the panel began circulating within hours. Social media users couldn't stop talking about how effortlessly Brooke shifted the mood, and how visibly Meghan seemed to retreat once she lost control of the room. The hashtag #TooPrecious started trending. Memes exploded. And the media? Oh, they pounced. People, Page 6, Fox News, and lifestyle blogs like Celebici all covered the moment. The headlines said it all. Brooke Shields interrupts Meghan Markle's overly serious speech. Meghan's dish soap story gets a wake-up call. Room erupts as Brooke cracks Meghan's bubble. Even mainstream outlets weren't trying to spin it. The tone had shifted from admiration to exhaustion. Meghan's once iconic origin story was now being called out for what it had become, a PR tool that had been replayed too many times on too many stages. And while some defended Meghan, saying her story was valid and inspiring, the broader sentiment was clear. Audiences are craving authenticity, not rehearsed empowerment monologues. That's why Brooke's moment landed the way it did. It wasn't just the joke, it was the contrast. Meghan's words felt curated, Brooke's felt lived in, and for an audience tired of being spoon-fed messaging, the raw truth hit harder than any well-polished panel speech ever could.
And she keeps saying, well, when I was 11, I saw this commercial and they were talking about washing dishes and only soap for washing dishes was for women. And she said, I didn't think only women wash dishes. It wasn't fair, so I wrote to the company. And when I was 11, I wrote my first letter, and then I was 11, and she kept saying she was 11. So she writes to the company, they changed the text.
What's more, commentators started asking a bigger question. If other A-listers are finally brave enough to push back, what does that say about Meghan's place in the industry? Because when you start losing the room and the press follow suit, that's more than just a bad day on stage. And just when Meghan's team needed to put out the fire, a few other unexpected headlines hit. A rumored name change, a mocked Netflix clip, and suddenly, it wasn't just a mic drop anymore. It was a full-blown PR avalanche. Just as the Brooke Shields moment was going viral, Meghan's team had another storm quietly brewing. And this one had Harry's name all over it. Reports broke that Prince Harry had allegedly considered dropping the royal surname Mountbatten-Windsor and switching to Spencer in a bid to realign his identity more closely with his late mother, Princess Diana. It sounded symbolic, emotional, and incredibly pointed. Royal commentators didn't hold back. They saw it as a clear message to King Charles and Prince William. Harry was done playing by Windsor rules. Some even speculated that the move was a way for Meghan to reposition their children, especially their daughter Diana, as Diana Spencer 2.0, a title with emotional weight and global recognition. If that wasn't eyebrow-raising enough, Meghan's personal brand also took a hit from a very different kind of viral moment: a pineapple. In a deleted clip from her With Love Meghan series, she demonstrated how to peel a pineapple by following its natural wedge. The video was reposted, and instead of praise, it drew mockery.
They changed the commercial. And I go, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Guys, just interrupt you there for 1 minute. And I was trying not to be rude, but I wanted to be funny because it was so serious. And I go, I just want to give everybody here a context.
Is this kindergarten cooking? Next up, how to microwave water. Once again, the issue wasn't what she said, it was how curated it felt. Between the overly scripted delivery and the underwhelming tip, audiences weren't inspired. They were cringing. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Coming right after the SXSW debacle, it only added fuel to the idea that Meghan's once captivating voice was now being tuned out. So within the same news cycle, Meghan faced a trifecta of setbacks. An A-list peer interrupting her live on stage, a headline-making identity shift linked to her husband, a mocked brand clip that turned empowerment into parody, and all of it pointed to one uncomfortable truth. When your image is built on polish, even the smallest crack becomes a headline. But the real turning point wasn't the pineapple, or even the name. It was what Brooke's moment revealed about Meghan's hold on the room, and how fast it disappeared. Let's be honest, this wasn't just about one offhand remark on a panel. Brooke's interruption hit harder because it exposed something much bigger: the growing disconnect between Meghan's brand and how people are actually experiencing her in real time. Meghan has spent years cultivating a specific public image, part humanitarian, part underdog, part thought leader. Everything from her wardrobe to her stories to her sound bites is curated to fit that persona. But here's the thing about tightly packaged narratives: they don't leave room for spontaneity. And eventually, they stop feeling real. That's why Brooke's comment landed like a lightning bolt. It wasn't just funny, it was unscripted. It brought contrast. It reminded everyone that while Meghan was delivering the same story for the 100th time, Brooke was offering rawness, vulnerability, and a touch of self-deprecating humor. In a single sentence, she did what no royal scandal or tabloid could. She broke the illusion without even trying. The public didn't side with Brooke because they dislike Meghan. They sided with Brooke because they recognized something true.
As to how we're different, I said, well, when I was 11, I was playing a prostitute. The place went insane. And then luckily, it was more relaxed after that. And I was like, oh, I hope she doesn't think I'm rude. I'm not being rude. I was just sort of,
I think it's genius.
It was just too precious.
And that's the bigger issue. This wasn't about a speech or a pineapple or a last name. It was about presence. Meghan is often talked about but rarely challenged, especially not on her own stage. And when that finally happened, the audience didn't flinch. They laughed, they leaned in, they relaxed. Which raises the question, if more people start doing what Brooke just did, gently but honestly puncturing the PR bubble, what happens next? Because once people start choosing authenticity over image, the perfectly framed stories don't land the same way anymore. The room shifted, the mood changed. And for the first time in a long time, Meghan wasn't holding the mic or the narrative. But before we wrap this up, there's one final piece to the puzzle. In just a few unscripted seconds, Brooke Shields did something that no palace statement, podcast episode, or PR rollout ever could. She reminded everyone that real stories don't need polish to land. Meghan Markle's carefully crafted narrative may have worked for a while, but in a world craving authenticity, perfectly packaged empowerment speeches can start to feel like background noise. And when someone like Brooke, respected, seasoned, and totally unbothered, steps in and shifts the entire tone of a room, it doesn't just go viral, it sticks. The stage moment was powerful. The backstage tension said even more. And when paired with Harry's rumored surname shakeup, Meghan's lifestyle content backlash, and the growing reluctance of A-listers to co-sign her brand, it paints a very different picture than what's posted on curated Instagram reels. Maybe this wasn't just a mic drop. Maybe it was a message, not just to Meghan, but to every public figure who believes image always wins over instinct. Because if there's one thing this viral clash made clear, when authenticity walks into the room, the script doesn't stand a chance.